Now, from President Uhuru Kenyatta pleading with Kenyans to safeguard his legacy by not electing thieves, to the Electoral Commission missing on its new voter registration target. Tonight on Pundits Night, we look at the state of politics. Good evening, I'm Abubakar Abdullahi. Welcome to the broadcast. As always, remember, you can be part of these discussions. Send us a message on 22047. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night. As earlier publicized, our guests for tonight were to be two. Ben Mulwa is with me in studio. Lawyer Kipchumba Karuri was to be with us. I hope you will join us in this program. Good evening, Ben. Thank you for your time.
A very good evening.
It's been time since we last hosted you here on TV.
It's been a while, actually.
All right.
I think it was last year, so we are closing the year on a high note.
Seemingly. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the politics of the country, given that our topic is the state of politics. Let's talk of IEBC registration and the missed targets. As of the third week, IEBC said it had registered 800,462 new voters out of a target of 4.5 million. That is indicative of not meeting a target.
Yeah, you know, even if it were an exam, a score of 17%, because 800,000 out of 4.5 million translates to 17%. I think that is something that now should genuinely worry anybody who considers themselves, or who calls themselves a leader in this country. The people primarily targeted in this voter registration exercise are people who have turned 18 essentially since the year 2013. These are people who have completed high school. A majority of them have also completed university or college education. A large percentage of them are in small-scale businesses and to sustain themselves. These are people who are bearing the greatest brand of an economy that is completely gone. We don't have an economy left in this country anymore. These are people whose aspirations have been destroyed by systemic policies and programs by a government that has completely chosen to be indefinitely insensitive to the plight of the average Kenyan. These are people who no longer see any reason as to why they should participate in any electoral process.
And Ben, it is the
reality.
You paint a picture of people who are in a grim circumstance, yet they are not registering.
The situation is more than grim, my brother Abubakar. I have been in political and scientific research for over 11 years now. And recently you saw we published a report that we undertook across the country for the 47 governors. And one of the key things we intended to extract from that was the gains that Mwananchi feels to have benefited from devolution. Actually, I think devolution is really like the hallmark of the 2010 Constitution.
Absolutely.
It is the biggest thing that we achieved. Now, the scorecard on the national scorecard on development performance by all the 47 governors, the average was about 50.9%. So it means if you are sitting an exam, I think that would be a C- or a D, something to that effect. What it tells you is that Kenyans have become exhausted. The average Kenyan is thoroughly and completely exhausted of a leadership that does not care about their plight. You have listened to Kenyans crying out about fuel prices. You have listened to Kenyans crying about the rising cost of food and education, healthcare, and all these things. Nobody has heeded to any of these pleas by any standards. So what would I need to do? For example, I have a young nephew who is completing university this year. What would be the motivation for this young man to want to participate in elections next year? What they are seeing and what they have seen is not anywhere near their aspirations. And then there is another dangerous trend that we have continued to nurture without a care. We have a problem of leaders who have continued to think that selling prehistory is really what would excite or inspire the future.
And Ben, we will come to what the leaders are
Yes.
selling now.
Yes.
If the situation is as you paint,
Yes.
and you say it's beyond the
It
green,
is very
why
bad,
not?
actually.
Is it not the natural course that you will expect people to register in number if they are tired with a certain leadership at the county level, at the national level,
And
change it through a ballot, given that we are
yeah.
a democracy?
Actually, that should be the ideal situation. And it's really unfortunate that to this moment, the average Kenyan has not gotten to really understand the power of the ballot. But it is not really to blame the Kenyan, because we have also seen electoral processes where the will of the people is subverted blatantly. The will of the people is ignored, and essentially nothing the average Kenyan can do about that. So in this particular context, the young man who I have seen people on TV say that this election must be this or the other or this other way, and I get concerned, because the last time I checked, Ben Mulwa only carried 1 vote. I cannot come and dictate, like now here we are in Westlands constituency. I don't think I have the capacity to dictate who becomes, to authoritatively say, Fulani must become the next MP of Westlands.
Despite with your 1 vote, you
I only
being
have
in a position to make a change.
No,
Okay.
but the idea is, you see, we have completely destroyed the concept of electoral processes and the value that electoral processes should deliver, in the sense that we have had many cases where the average Kenyan is disillusioned from the fact that elections are conducted. Then abracadabra happens somewhere along the way, either by the time we are placing the papers in the ballot boxes up to the time announcements are made on TV, and this has continued to nurture the apathy that we are seeing today.
All right,
and let me finish up on that. That apathy should worry everybody, as I said, and it should worry everybody who is calling themselves a leader in this country today, because at the end of the day, these numbers would be very important, either to vote in whatever it is that people want to vote in, or to vote out whatever it is that people want to vote out.
And I'm sure you must have heard of the argument of why vote if it doesn't matter.
That's the bigger tragedy.
But in a liberal democracy as ours, one would expect votes matter. Voting matters.
It should, actually. That's why I said the ideal situation should be, even these young people who are very disillusioned, especially by the economy, their vote should really count for something come next year. And because that's the most powerful voice that the citizenry can use. That's why it is even enshrined in Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, that the sovereign power of this country rests with the people. It is not with the political leaders, it is not with the president, it is not with the deputy or any other individual for that matter. Unfortunately, over the years, we have continued to see, as I indicated, the will of the people being arrogantly and blatantly subverted, to the extent that people get tired. And it is normal, because even Albert Einstein once said, it is only a fool who continues to do the same thing and expect different outcomes. So to the average Kenyan today, we have seen the way elections have been managed in this country a couple of times. So the average question would be, why should I again waste my time? Wake up at 4 a.m., go to vote for people who come only with a basket full of lies and zero capacity to deliver on the promises that they make. So why should I bother? So the reason, or one of the key things I consider that should happen, is we need by this time to have individuals who believe in a different set of ideals to be the ones who are inspiring these ones who have given up on hope. There is a huge percentage of the population that has given up entirely on the possibility of ever gaining anything out of participating from elections. So when the average Kenyan looks through what they are seeing in political rallies and public discourses, it does not really inspire hope. And I think that is one of the bigger tragedies that we need to address.
And as I earlier mentioned, we have a lot to talk about, from the mass voter registration. Let's talk of the president and the concern on his legacy. As late as last week, while speaking in his native Kikuyu language, the president president said, and I quote, "Do not allow Mwai Kibaki's 10 years and my 10 years to be destroyed by electing thugs and thieves." End of quote. Should a president who has served a constitutional limit term of 2 years, 2 terms of 5 years each, worry of his legacy?
No, there should never be even zero. There should never be any cause for worry for
Why not?
a sitting president, because you see, when getting elected into office, you come into office with a promise or promises, and I can guarantee you, if you deliver on what you promised the people, then you should have zero reasons to worry. I am very confident that there is not one single time I heard President Kibaki worried about his legacy, because when your legacy always has the capacity to speak for itself. Your legacy always has the ability to it does not need actually to be propagated, or it does not need to be populated. For example, like for the last 10 years, President Uhuru Kenyatta has done very well on infrastructure. There is no doubt about that. As I told you, especially in my research work, on average, each month I drive in this country between 5,000 and 7,000 kilometers. And that means I go to places in different parts of the country, and I have seen the miracles, especially on roads. So why should he come to TV to be worried about whether Kenyans are going to forget about
Ben,
the roads?
Is it not the case that the president often cites some politicians to be a cause of division, to divide a country that he wants to leave behind as a united front? That's a genuine concern, isn't it?
I don't want to delve much into that, Abubakar, because there is always a scenario that I normally present. You cannot seal a hole by digging another one right next to it, and unfortunately, be it as it may. The president has not, in very many ways, come off as a unifying factor in this country, and that's a fact, in very many ways.
Despite championing the BBI, which he said was a flagship uniting project?
Let me tell you, because it is a good thing we're discussing just the apathy of the young people. For example, if we sorted out the issue of the economy, these young people would be very motivated to want to participate in electoral processes, even to enhance the leadership that we have. So it is the same thing. You cannot unite people by writing things on pieces of paper. It has never worked anywhere in the world. You can only unite people by, one, ensuring that what is expected, especially of a government, is what is achieved. For example, you saw the debate that surrounded the BBI conceptualization and enforcement up to the court cases and the conclusion as to where we are. Believe you me, if something is good for the people, because every single Kenyan has the capacity and the ability to interpret and understand issues in their own right and make their own decisions. That's why even that sovereignty, that sanctity is even protected in the Constitution. So when Kenyans, for example, started raising concerns about the way the BBI process was being conducted, I consider that a good leadership would take time really to listen to these concerns, understand why a certain section of the population is not happy or satisfied with that, and look at, because if we are trying to unite ourselves, then it means the concerns of Ben, the concerns of Abubakar, the concerns of the other person, all of them must at some point find convergence. But if we come here and I tell you, my brother, you know, I have come here with the news I want to read tonight. So yours is just run the cameras. Don't ask me where I got the news from, but I just want to read the news. You see, that is not how to do things. And unfortunately, those are some of the challenges that even the president, as he looks to secure his legacy, is going to face, because there has been very loud cries by the average Kenyans on very many issues. Unfortunately, most of these cries or concerns have not been addressed or listened to. You remember for a very long time, for example, Kenyans raised concerns about the former CS National Treasury, that is Henry Rotich. This is an individual who single-handedly decimated the economy of this country, and that's a fact. Unfortunately, the president kept him for far too long. Took him 7 years to remove that guy from office.
All right.
Now, when you look at the economy today, when you talk to the county governments, for example, disbursements are far and widely sparsed out because essentially the economy is not generating sufficient funds to maintain the national and the county governments. So these are some of the things that the president would not really require to beg Kenyans to appreciate his legacy. Kenyans, every morning when they wake up, they know what his administration has been able to deliver, and they also know what his administration has not been able to deliver.
And speaking of politics,
yes.
We have lately seen a political influx of heavyweights,
yes.
or lightweights, if you may call them that way,
yes.
of politicians into central Kenya, wanting
yes.
to cut that region primarily for the number of votes that region has. Raila Odinga says he has climbed the mountain. The DP says if anyone wants to come to Mount Kenya, they should come through him.
Yes.
We have seen Musalia Mudavadi say the mountain is ready for him. Kalonzo Musyoka equally making such sentiments. How determinant will the mountain be come 2022?
Actually, I think for the first time in a very long time, Mount Kenya is going to be the swing vote. Because previously we have had cases where they have had very strong presidential candidates or contenders. Since the time 1992, Kenneth Matiba running with Mwai Kibaki. In 1997, we had Mwai Kibaki, a very strong contender, who came number 2 after former President Moi, God bless his soul. In 2002, we had Mwai Kibaki. In 2007, we had Mwai Kibaki. In 2013, we had Uhuru Kenyatta. In 2017, we had Uhuru Kenyatta. So, Central Kenya has always been the one going out to look for support, or to show up support to consolidate its bid for presidency. Unfortunately, as it stands, unless a miracle happens, we don't have any serious presidential candidate anywhere in Central Kenya who can even galvanize the Central Kenya vote alone, let alone other parts of the country. And again, there has been that growing concern from the other parts of the country that really this is not a reserve of Central Kenya. But I usually never support that kind of a thinking, because I mean, if my name is Kamau and Uhuru was a president, no, you cannot stop me from running for president because Mwai Kibaki was president and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta was president. Every Kenyan actually retains an equal right. It depends on now how you package yourself and what you're able to present to the people. If that is what they like, that's okay. But for the first time, Central Kenya, you agree, does not have a serious presidential candidate or contender. And now this has opened up the place for suitors from every other part of the country. And it's going to be very interesting, actually, because it takes us back to the issue we started off on, the economy. This is going to be really the main discussion point, not only in Central Kenya but across the country. And one of the key things the average Kenyan will be looking out for is what kind of economic model or presentations are you bringing to us? What is your strategy to dig out this economy from the grave that it is currently sitting in? And that is now the challenge that is presented to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the challenge to William Ruto, the challenge to Kalonzo Musyoka, Mudavadi, and any other candidate. Again, Central Kenya feels, when you listen to the people on average, they feel that they cannot afford to be left out in the cold. They cannot afford not to be in government in 2022. So that again is going to inform the kind of engagements they want to align themselves with. That means they will also be very keen to ensure the candidature that they intend to work with has a real chance of winning the election. For them, it will not be a gamble because, you know, as they say, and it is accurate actually, the central Kenya population has invested heavily in many areas in the economy of this country. That cannot be disputed. We have the statistics. So that means for them, it is very important to participate in the formation of the next government, most importantly to secure their interests. They cannot just gamble with that opportunity and end up again with policies that are going to decimate them. They had that experience, especially in the 80s, and I don't think they're willing to go back into that kind of a scenario.
And Ben, because of the interest of time, given that you say there is no leading presidential candidate from that region, is a deputy on either of the political sides then inevitable from that region?
Again, that is open because and I think that is what is going to be the biggest nightmare of all the front-runner presidential candidates, from Raila Odinga to William Ruto to Kalonzo Musyoka, because for example, there is this thinking that if William Ruto picks a deputy, say from central Kenya, then again it will be another Jubilee kind of government arrangement that we have had since 2013. So the challenge would be for the average Kenyan, is it now is this going to be a forever Kikuyu Kalenjin affair? Again, I'm sure he's heavily banking on the central Kenya vote. So in the event he does not pick a deputy from that region, there is a possibility he can lose a huge percentage of that vote. So it's a catch-22 for most of these candidates. Again, look at an individual like Raila Odinga. Previously, in 2007, he ran with Musalia Mudavadi. In 2013, he ran with Kalonzo Musyoka. In 2017, again, he ran with Kalonzo Musyoka. But now, the question for the people by the people of Central Kenya is, so what is our stake in this? If you decide to retain, say, Kalonzo Musyoka or Musalia Mudavadi, so where are we in your government? So kwa Kiswahili nilo wanaita kizungumkuti. It is going to be very intricate, and it is going also to be very interesting to see how individuals get to balance this out. But this is my take now as a Kenyan and as a researcher. We should never even be having that kind of conversations in the first place, because ideally, what we should have is individuals who are presenting an agenda to the nation that every Kenyan feels comfortable, that their interests are adequately covered or taken care of. I should not worry that if a Maasai, you see, like, you know, Kambani, we border the Maasais, there should never be a reason why I should worry if a Maasai today becomes a president, then I'm likely to lose my agricultural land, for example. There should never be a reason where, like Garissa borders Kitui County, if a Mkamba becomes a president, you should not be worried that probably you're going to be invaded. So it's unfortunate that we have trivialized important national discourses to the level whereby now we are always computing and recalibrating tribal arithmetics to balance. You see now, Central Kenya is a basket. You know, we look at it as baskets. Tuko na hii sijui 4 or 5 million votes. Rift Valley tuko na hii. Ukiongeza Ukambani na hii, you find people in boardrooms crunching numbers. And we are not crunching policies, Abubakar. We are not crunching plans, because if we have individuals who are genuinely committed to follow the provisions of the Constitution of Kenya, and individuals who are committed to addressing the challenges and the plight of the average Kenyan, then we should never worry where that individual comes from. Unfortunately, because for many years it has been shown that hii kiti lazima ikuje kwetu. Recently I had also somebody saying now the presidency is going to go to another region and now it is going to be their turn, and I found that to be a very, very unfortunate, because these are the kind of sentiments that continue to make mwananchi resist being open-minded to listen to different candidatures and make an independent assessment. Because if I'm convinced, for example, I am a Kamba, if I am convinced that I can only become useful, or Ukambani can only develop when Kalonzo becomes president, then I would be worried of any other candidate. Right. But that should never be the discourse.
All right, Ben Mulwa, because of the interest of time, we will have to end the discussion there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Ben Mulwa Abdullah is a governance expert and a researcher, and that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of TV47 News Tonight, Pundits Night. Lawyer Kipchumba Karuri was to be part of this discussion. It seems he will not be since we are ending the show. Thanks for watching. I'm Abubakar Abdullahi. Enjoy the rest of